Welcome everybody. So far we have been building our application as if everything is being used correctly and things are working, but what if things go terribly wrong? We hit a 404 or we can't connect to the server. Right now our application just breaks. It doesn't do anything. As shown before, we search a word that doesn't exist and it gives us a blank page. Not very friendly. So what we want to do is first deal with 404s. And the way we're going to do this is by creating a 404 component inside of our component list that we can redirect to when we hit a 404. Alternatively, we can show the 404 component inline if we don't want to have a redirect. But let's start with the first one. So how do you check for a redirect? This response here that we get inside of fetch actually has a status code we can check. So to do this, let's go ahead and wrap this in curly braces. And when you do that, it allows us to write across multiple lines. So we can expand it like so, and then we would just change this to return response.json. This is just an alternative syntax to the arrow function. It does exactly the same thing, but now we can go in and add another line here. So let's go ahead and console log response.status. Saving this, let's give it a try. Oh, you can see right there, it already says 404. Building off of this, we can make a condition checking what status this is, and if it's a 404, do a redirect. So let's try this. First, let's just create the if statement. So if response.status is equal to, now I can't quite remember if it's a string or a number. So what we're going to do is we're just going to try it as a number first and see if we get the console log. And it looks like it is in fact a number, so not a string. So this is exactly what the syntax is going to be. And instead of a console log here, we can actually redirect. Now the way you redirect now is with navigate, which we learned about in the previous video. So this is a perfect example of where you might use navigate. So let's go ahead and say navigate. Now we did use navigate in the previous video, but it was in a different component. So every time we reuse that in a different component, we need to do the same thing. We have to import it and then invoke it, setting the return to a variable. So it'll look like this. We will say import use navigate and then create a reference to it by invoking it with use navigate, and we will just say const navigate. Alright, so that's the syntax, and then down here we can invoke our variable and pass in a path such as /404. So let's try this out. We'll save, and it already worked, but let's go back to the dictionary just to see it from the beginning. So we'll go to dictionary, type in some word that the dictionary doesn't know, hit search. You saw it quickly pop up something about a definition, and then it redirects to a 404. So a couple of issues we should probably fix so it doesn't flash that text, and we don't actually have a 404 page. So first problem is the text popping up. So this H1, we can take this and we only want to return it if the word is evaluated to true. Now we're going to be returning two things from this, so let's surround it with a fragment. So it'll look like this. And then we just need to wrap this in curly braces, like so. Now we should be able to go in here and add the H1, save, does a little bit of a reformatting, and this is what we get. So let's try this again. We'll go back to the dictionary, search something like Texas, hit search. We don't get anything pop up on the screen, which is good. Now let's go ahead and create a 404 component. You could create it as a page as well, but I'm going to create it as a component because then you could, in theory, embed it in other pages, which you can do with pages as well, but just logically makes sense to have it as a component here. So 404.js function, and I'm just going to export it here. So export default function, and we will call this, can you start a function with a number? I don't think you can. So we'll say not found. And I'll just keep the file name to match that for consistency. So notfound.js. And here we will return paragraph saying resource not found. It's kind of a techie way of saying it, which you might want to make this more friendlier. So the page you are looking for was not found. That's a little bit better. Now it's still not going to work because we haven't associated that component with this URL, so we have to do that in our routes, which we defined in app.js. So let's go ahead, create a new route, and this one is going to be interesting. First, we will create a route for /404, and the element is going to be the 404 component. So we'll just invoke that here, 404, or I guess it's called not found. This will need to be imported, so import not found from ./components/ not found. All right, so I got that imported. So now we should at least see that show up. The page you were looking for was not found. However, we also want to redirect potentially if we type in some garbage here and it doesn't go to a page that exists, we can redirect to a 404. So basically we just want to make a catch-all for the paths, and we want to put this last. So we'll say route path being equal to anything, which you can say with an asterisk. Element is going to be the same thing, the not found component. All right, so basically it's going to go through each one of these paths. If it doesn't hit anything, this one should catch it. But let's just try it out to make sure. /garbage does in fact show the 404 not found. You'll notice that the URL doesn't actually change, it just shows it in the page. We can do the same exact thing for our search terms if we want. So let's go to the dictionary again, type in some word, hit search. If we want that to stay Texas up there, then all we need to do is we just need to embed that component. So we'll go over to the definition, scroll up. If response status is 404, we will set a state variable of not found to true. So const not found, set not found is use state, and we will just set that to true here. So by default, let's make it false. So you can pass that in here. And then here we will say set not found to true. So far so good. And then what we can do is we can actually check that value down here. So if set not found, and I'm bringing my terrible Python habits here. So if set not found is equal to true, then what we want to do is return not found. And I'll make that self-closing, and we'll make sure that that is imported. So import not found from / components not found, and we'll search Texas, hit search. Didn't quite work, just a typo here. I said set not found equal to true. We want this to be not found. There we go. Now it says the page you were looking for was not found. So this is kind of interesting where we have a return here and then we have a return here, and basically as this component continues to be updated as the state changes, it will return the appropriate thing. Let's try a different definition. Seems to work. I also think it would be appropriate to have a button to go back to the dictionary. So if you do search something that doesn't exist, it could say something like search another term, or again, you could create a search component, which is embedded here. Let's just create that button. So what we'll do is we will go over to this here. And what we're going to do is we're going to surround this in parentheses, which will allow us to write our return over multiple lines. The very first thing is we will create a fragment, which is going to be the single thing we return. But inside of that fragment, we're going to put multiple things. So we will put the not found component. You could create a button that then navigates, or you could just create a link component and set the path to /dictionary. And this I think we will want to close separate and then put the value that shows up here. Search another. So this is going to need imported, and like other things from navigation, it's going to come from React Router DOM. So we'll say comma link. Let's try that out. This page you were looking for was not found. Search another. Cheetos, search not found. Chips, search, and there we go. So we talked a lot about 404s in this video. Took a little bit longer than expected, so I'm going to talk about errors in the next video. And this would be if, say, for example, your internet is not connected and we can't connect to that backend server. or various other errors like that, such as being unauthorized and so forth. So you'll want to check out that video if you want to know more on making your application a little bit more interactive. Thanks for watching, stay tuned, and be sure to subscribe.